Good morning, afternoon, evening, and welcome to the channel. I've been hearing a lot of narratives recently about Sasuke being a fraud, and honestly, I disagree. I understand that for some of us, agenda means more than facts and actual arguments, but I want y'all to just bear with me for a little bit. Let me get my points off, and hopefully you come up with a better understanding of his entire character arc and what he went through in Shippuden. The majority of the arguments for how he could be considered a fraud actually come from before the war arc, so I wanted to focus on a majority of that if possible. And well, let's just get started. First and foremost, for a lot of us, we have different perceptions on what wins, losses, draws, or just inconclusive fights could be throughout the series. Uh, for instance, early on in the series, would you consider Naruto versus Hiruzen a fight, or is that just sandbagging? How about Naruto versus Ebisu? Are those both W's? Or are those just gags? How about Naruto and Sasuke versus Haku? If the fight continued onwards, would Sasuke have won that fight? Would you consider that a Sasuke L after he jumped in to save Naruto and he supposedly died? Would you consider that Naruto W despite him not being able to finish and kill Haku and Haku going off to save Zabuza instead? Or would you consider that a Kakashi W because he actually managed to kill Haku? In that same vein, how about that first fight between Kakashi and Zabuza? Zabuza managed to catch Kakashi in a water prison, right? Was that a Zabuza W? Or would you consider that Kakashi W when after he escaped with the help of Naruto and Sasuke, he managed to actually beat Zabuza right then and there? Or would you consider that a Haku W? Or would that be inconclusive? It really depends on what your definition of a W, a L, or a draw, or just what an inconclusive fight is at the end of the day. So I can understand why you might think Sasuke might be a fraud based on these different definitions that we have. Starting out with Shippuden, I guess I would just skip the earlier fights. Sasuke versus the new Team Seven, that was a wash. Whatever. Sasuke versus that off-screen thousand. Well, in the anime they mentioned 1,000 Shinobi. You can skip that too. The first fight people want to get to is Sasuke versus Orochimaru. Now we all know that Orochimaru was sick and Orochimaru was ready for the transfer jutsu to go through. I believe personally that Sasuke would have still won that shit regardless. I know later on, during the Deidara fight, he says Orochimaru was weak. That's the only reason why I managed to beat him so easily. But regardless, Sasuke had still surpassed Orochimaru by that point, if you ask me. Sasuke's very will eroded Orochimaru's inner being, and he managed to absorb him. That's the whole reason why he was able to even get an edge up in the first place. He just became so strong, and his will was so strong that he managed to overpower Orochimaru. So I don't understand why people want to bring that fight up in particular. One fight that people really like to go to and say that it was mad plot armor was Sasuke versus Deidara. From the very start of that fight, Sasuke had the edge. Now we know he had lightning versus Deidara's earth release. And from the start, Sasuke just knew what he was doing. That's actually one of the most tactical fights in the entire series, and he was going crazy in that one. Now, the main thing people like to talk about in that fight is the ending of it. About how Sasuke managing to escape with such bull and all of that. And I understand where you're coming from, but there's a lot to unpack when it comes to that too. You have to consider the entire thing. So in chapter 362, Deidara blows himself up. We see that, we see what's going on. In chapter 363, the very next chapter, we see that Sasuke is fine. But what you have to look into and you have to see, this is what Kishimoto wanted y'all to see. Y'all might not have noticed though. You have to look at Sasuke's left arm. You see that seal, you see the Fuin Jutsu on his arm. That's the same exact Fuin Jutsu that Kabuto and Orochimaru had back in part 1 versus Jiraiya and Tsunade in chapter 169. That's that same snake seal that Orochimaru used to summon Manda. That makes it easy summon and access for everybody. And in chapter 362, rather, whenever he was talking to Deidara, he already told Deidara that he had a backup plan set in place to escape from his explosions if he needed it. That was that same backup plan. Now, I understand that we see Sasuke, he's shielding himself in that one panel or even in the anime, and you think, oh, he's about to be caught up, he's about to explode, all of that. I get you. But I wanted to compare this to another situation to just nip this in the bud. We see this same thing happening when Goku's escaping from Namek. We have to consider this suspense in Shonen in general. In Dragon Ball chapter 328, We see Goku, he's screaming out, "No, I can't find a way out of this." In that same chapter, we believe that Goku is dead. The same exact thing that Kishimoto did with Sasuke. It's suspense. The very next chapter, 329, the same thing we happen with Sasuke. We find out that Goku's actually alive. What's the difference in this? Where's the plot armor? Do we complain that Goku was still alive after that Namek explosion? Or do we just accept it? Why is it we accept Goku's situation, but we don't accept Sasuke's? The next fight to get into is Sasuke versus Itachi. Now, we all know that Itachi orchestrated the entire event. He orchestrated everything and he wanted Sasuke to win. We understand that. Sasuke still proved himself. He went crazy. And at the end of the day, we know that this was all a fight to make Sasuke the hero of the leaf, to awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan. We knew where this was going immediately afterwards, though. Sasuke decides he wants to destroy the Leaf Village. Okay, we get that. We understand it. The next fight that happens afterwards, we got Sasuke versus Killer Bee. Now, people love to get on Sasuke for this fight. But one thing people have to consider is that Sasuke at the start of this fight is weaker than Sasuke whenever he went to fight against Itachi off rip. And the reason for that is because Sasuke lost his curse mark. Now, some of y'all might not understand this, but the curse mark is an actual boost. Now, you can go back to narrative statements or whatever. Back in part 1, Jirobo says even in his curse mark stage 2, he's 10 times as strong as he was before. I don't believe it to be a 10 times increase. You can take it for that if you want to. But regardless, Sasuke managed to use that to match it to a version 1 Cloak Naruto in part 1. Not only does it increase your chakra, but it also increases your physical attributes as well. So Sasuke losing that and immediately going to fight against Killer Bee whenever he's not even fully healed yet either. From the start, he wasn't able to physically respond to Killer Bee's movements. All he could do was try to perceive them with his Sharingan. And as we know back in part 1, whenever Lee was fighting against Sasuke, he also told him, hey, you might be able to perceive my movements, sure, but your body can't keep up. That was the difference. It wasn't until the end of the fight, chapter 414 to 415, whenever he uses the Mangekyo Sharingan for the first time in that fight, and the Amaterasu, that he manages to actually do something against B. End of the day, sure, you could consider that a Sasuke L. Sasuke may be overconfident, but we have to consider this too. For a lot of these fights, later on, whenever he joins the Akatsuki alongside Team Taka, Obito and Zetsu do not give him any information on who he's fighting. He gets no previous intel. He doesn't know who the hell his opponents are. He doesn't know what they look like, what their abilities are, purely because Obito wants Sasuke to go in, fight the gauntlet, and level up his Sharingan and his abilities. It's the same way during the 5 Kage Summit. Sasuke in the 5 Kage Summit gets around 4 different buffs throughout the summit. Like I said previously, Obito wants Sasuke to level up his Sharingan. The entire summit was a means for Sasuke to level up his Susanoo and his Sharingan to the next level completely. That's the whole reason why Obito had Zetsu tell the entirety of the 5 Kage Summit that Sasuke is there, to force Sasuke to run the gauntlet. It wasn't that was the plan off rip. The plan was that they were going to ambush Danzo later on. From the very start of the summit, we can see that Sasuke is entirely different from what he was before. In chapter 460, we see that Karen's talking about Sasuke's chakra being thicker and colder than the second stage curse mark. We see later on, too, Sasuke versus A, as well as C and Darui, that Sasuke manages to catch his first buff in chapter 463. He gets the Susanoo ribcage. Later on, when Sasuke is going against Gaara, Tamari, Kankuro, and Darui, he gets another buff. In chapter 464 to 465, we see that he gets the Susanoo skeleton and the sword. He goes against Mei and Onoki and all of them. He gets a chakra restore in the midst of it from Zetsu and Kadin heals him to go against Danzo later on. And in that same fight, he manages to catch another buff too. He gets his half humanoid Susanoo and he gets the bow and arrow too, and he manages to break out of Danzo's full jutsu. And then once more afterwards against Kakashi, he catches another buff, the Armored Susanoo, and that's immediately before he catches his blindness in chapter 484. Later on, too, we see that Sasuke gets his EMS on top of that and gets another further buff in chapter 488. He specifically says, they actually fit quite nicely. I already feel Itachi's ocular power. I have already become stronger. And afterwards, once he lets those eyes settle and he goes against Kabuto alongside Itachi, we can see that he's becoming so much more stronger too. And then you have all of the war arc shenanigans that happen on top of that. End of the day, there's a lot that happens in terms of Sasuke's character and his arc. After the entire fight against Itachi, Obito wants to push him to awaken his Sharingan to the next level. He wants to make him even stronger and stronger and stronger for whatever plan. I'm not sure if Kishimoto dropped the ball on whatever plan that initially was, but at the end of the day, Obito is the one that's manipulating him in the background and wanting him to become even stronger and stronger and stronger. We can see it in numerous panels where Obito's giving Sasuke the side eye, wanting to see what he does, wanting to see what he says. I can understand if you say that Sasuke was headstrong, that he wanted to attack the 5 Kage Summit. I get it. If you just looking at it for the agenda, sure, but that wasn't the initial plan. You can say that Sasuke caught an L against the Raikage, sure, if you want to, but at the end of the day, the same Sasuke that fought the Raikage is not the same Sasuke by the end of the summit that went against Danzo. It's not the same Sasuke that fought against Kakashi that clashed against Naruto by the end of the summit either. Throughout that entire event, Sasuke caught 4 different buffs and he became stronger and stronger and stronger off of Obito's plan. If you want to continue to call him a fraud, go ahead, but I fully disagree. End of the day, it is what it is. Y'all can get y'all points off, say what you want to say. Be easy, stay safe, tell your loved ones that you love them, and take care. Peace.